Welcome to the Cloud Council. I'm Don Polaniki, and today we're going to be talking about data-led business modernization. And I'm delighted to be joined by Graham Hackland, Group CIO of Rocket Williams Racing. So let's consider best practice. So Williams has a rich history in data management. You've obviously been part of that story for a long time. I know that goes back to Sir Frank and latterly Claire. Give us a bit of history into Williams' adoption of data and some best practice to your CIO, CTO colleagues watching as to how you might embark on a data-led business strategy.
Yeah, I think for Formula One, for a very long time, has been at the forefront of technology, and not just car technology, but really, pushing the boundaries. The first data logger in a Formula One car, so the first connected car, was 1979 at Williams. Incredible. 64K data logger, took 20 minutes to download one lap of data, so nothing like the real time that we have now. When I came into Formula One, with another team, but 20 years after that, we would get both cars' data onto a floppy disk with a bit of space. So it was probably around a meg, a whole race weekend's worth of data. I've tried to work it out. Not sure I have right, but I think one car will generate more than that just from the start into the first corner of pretty much every race. So the amount of data that I've seen in my time in Formula One has been incredible, but very focused. And this is one of the things that is quite tricky, actually. I think for most of us, for most CIOs, is there's so much data. What's actually valuable? And that's how we approached our data management project as part of this digital transformation. And Williams have been doing it for a long time, and Formula One teams have as well. And every year you'd be adding more and more storage, and it would be all about the storage space. And sometimes people couldn't find the data that they needed in a quick enough time frame. I remember being asked in one of my previous teams for some data that was 12 years old, that someone remembered was similar to the nose design that had come out 12 years later. And it took us about 9 days to find that data. We'd gone back through hundreds of tapes and recategorizing old tapes that maybe some of the younger CIOs don't know what tapes are, but it was. And by the time we got that data, they'd already rerun the tests in the wind tunnel, made models of this nose, and they no longer needed the data. And that really impressed itself on me. So that's, 10, 15 years ago and yeah, probably 15 years ago that happened. And I thought, there's no point having all this data and you can't get it quickly. And so that's been our focus as part of our digital transformation at Williams. Understanding with everybody who's a data owner, what's the value of this data that you have? When do you need it? How's it going to be most valuable to you? When does it go, if not end of life, when is it no longer useful? And we've built a tiering structure at Williams so that you're not having to spend huge amounts of money keeping data online on expensive storage that you're never going to touch. And so that tiering allows us, and working with multiple vendors as well. And that's the other tricky thing. I've been around long enough in IT to have heard a vendor say to me, that's not our problem, that's the software vendor, or that's this other hardware vendor that you've got in the mix. I don't see that happening anymore. We work in an ecosystem of partners in our risk space, but also in our infrastructure space, where they will work together. We had a cab last week, and we made some changes to our infrastructure. And the release manager, I talked to him and said, are you concerned because there's two vendors involved here? Nope. One of them has taken the primary lead, so they are going to lead this with me, and the other has someone on standby ready to contact both of us if we have a problem. So that became a really important thing, having the vendors working together. So if when you're procuring, you go out and you just try to screw the vendor down to the lowest possible price, you're not going to get that kind of service when you need it. So that's been really important for us, that the supplier and the partner management is absolutely critical to making sure that when you come to do something difficult or you're having problems, that they will work with you and that they'll work together. So for me, number one, understanding the value of the data, how long it's valuable for, who needs it and when they need it is critical for a data management project. And then all of the vendors that you have in the mix, because very few of us go with a single vendor, making sure that they're prepared to work together with you.
Well, and I can speak from personal experience, Graham, that has been my experience of working with Williams, very much about partnering and partnerships. So it's, absolutely great to see you walk the talk there. So you talked a little bit about potential external conflicts, which is obviously great to hear that doesn't happen. Internal conflict, that point about data and having access to it or not and tiering it. How do you manage conflicts where you, let's say, might have an engineer who's very demanding about having access to data going back 25 years? How do you deal with those kind of demands internally?
A demanding engineer, is there such a thing? um, yeah, look, I think maybe we're lucky compared to some industries. I mean, obviously there are demanding people, and there are some people. If you say to them, as part of this data management, so how long do you need to keep this data? The answer will be forever. But in our technical leadership, we have some really brilliant people, and they understand the need to balance the money that we would spend on keeping everything available forever, and the fact that they want to hire another designer or hire an aerodynamicist or put some innovative part on the car or add a package of upgrades to the car for an extra race in that year. So that's the kind of trade-offs that they are making. So it's not that like IT has to go and say you can't have this because there's not enough storage. They are making those decisions. So we have an IT steering group that is led by the leadership of the organization, and they will help to shape what we work on, when we work on it, but also questions like this: how long should we keep data for? How do we make sure that we're not scrapping anything that's subsequently needed? And if we do, what's the balance between a piece of data that's been generated by a rig and rerunning that job on the rig? Maybe sometimes it's quicker if it's a 4-hour job, you just run it again instead of keeping all of the data that it generated. So we don't actually keep all the data that we generate as an organization, and it's very difficult to work out what to flush and what to keep. The vast majority is kept, but especially in aerodynamics, they are very prudent about what is actually valuable to keep, what can they flush and rerun the job at some point in the future. So yes, you do get people who say, I want to keep everything forever. But I think it's much more pragmatic than that. And having strong leadership in the organization is really important. It's never about IT against the organization and all the conversations I hear about, IT need to be aligned to the organization. I've been fortunate to work in a true team environment, right, in a sport. Mm-hmm. And so you are all part of the team. No one in IT should be doing anything for their own sake. It's all about making the car go faster, like we talked about earlier.
Graham, thank you very much indeed again for joining me this week for the Cloud Council, being such an entertaining guest, and best of luck for the season. Thank you to all the viewers for being with us this week. You can find more business and IT advice at nutanix.com/CXO, and I'll see you next time.